There are differences, of course, but there's no hostility. And we don't take action, neither Singapore nor Malaysia, to frustrate these movements.
All of these outstanding bilateral issues are complex issues. There are differences in views, and they are not easy to resolve. But as good neighbours, we will continue engaging in good faith.
The spectacular example and success, not only a matter of economic arrangement, but it could only happen in terms of the Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone because of the trust and the friendship. And I don't think this should be ignored or underestimated. This is, I repeat, unprecedented. And we have seen the initial results, which is startling, which of course benefits Singapore, but more so in Malaysia.
This year we made very good progress on the Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone. Singapore-based companies have committed over $5.5 billion in investments in the Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone since January 2024. So we welcome the ratification of the SEZ agreement, and we are working towards completion of the RTS link. I no doubt it will be a major game changer. Of course, the traffic will flow beyond just using the rail. There will be other forms of traffic demands, including taxis and buses. So we know that demand for cross-border taxis have been going up, for example. And it's been so, the increase has been so significant that the taxi companies have not been able to meet that demand, and you've ended up with illegal services coming up to meet those demands. And I think that's something we can resolve. We will provide more options, more convenience. And on the Singapore end, we are making a major upgrade to the Woodlands checkpoint.
The need to, of course, to improve the infrastructure within Johor Bahru and its hinterland too, which we are now working at. And the rest, of course, we understand the requirement for Woodlands and the ICQ. We're just working the last phase of the arrangements so that Singapore can proceed fast, because it would benefit Singapore and, of course, Malaysia too. But we are open to new suggestions, but we are working seriously on that. And I've said, due to this economic zone, for the first time in our history, Singapore has registered a phenomenal growth in terms of investments, surpassing my state, Penang.
Johor.
And I have no complaints about it.
Johor.
Johor, I'm sorry.
Johor.
Johor. Phenomenal increase in Johor that surpassed Penang, because I'm too upset about Penang.
The long-standing issues are long-standing for a reason. They are complex, there are differences in views, and therefore we have to continue engaging one another. What's important is how we go about that engagement, and we do so in a constructive spirit, with mutual respect, trying to understand one another's positions. We try to resolve these issues in accordance with international law, and to achieve durable and mutually beneficial outcomes. Not always easy to do that, but we can continue to talk and make progress. For example, on airspace, recognizing that airspace management is not about sovereignty, it's about air management services for both countries, and to meet the current and future needs of our respective airports. In Malaysia's case, KLIA and Senai; in Singapore's case, Changi and Seletar. And it's about recognizing that in the new environment where air traffic volumes have gone up, especially for Malaysia between east-west traffic, then we will have to look at how best to optimize the air traffic management services. It's not so much to say we have to resolve all this by a certain timeline. We have to be realistic, but so long as we continue engaging one another, making progress, and importantly, even if we cannot resolve the issues completely, we do not allow them to color or to undermine the rest of our relationship. We can still cooperate in other areas, like the SEZ.
There are differences, of course, but there's no hostility. And we don't take action, neither Singapore nor Malaysia, to frustrate these movements. What needs to be agreed upon is to facilitate that process, and at least to have some clarity so this will not create issues in the future. So I think you should at least compliment the present efforts in that direction. I'm not suggesting necessarily that it was never done. This has been the position in the past, but at least for now, for the first time, we have got the parameters clear.
Because we've got good rainfall in this past year, recent years, so no pressing immediate issues, but we know that demand is growing. Demand in Johor for water is growing with the industries and the investments that it is attracting. And importantly, we know that when extreme weather changes can happen, it has happened in the past. We can have dry spells, for example. We could also have disruption scenarios that may not be completely anticipated. So in light of those longer-term considerations, both sides, the officials on both sides have been meeting to see if there are possibilities for collaboration, especially to do more new infrastructure that will strengthen the resilience of water supply with benefits for both Johor and also for Singapore under our 1962 water agreement.
In terms of the first issue on the effectiveness of our communications and that level of trust, water is no longer a contentious issue as far as Malaysia is concerned, and in Johor particularly. Yes, the treated water from Johor, from Singapore, which originates from Johor, but the requirements in Johor is also huge. So any discussion in terms of the price mechanism that we initiated in the past would be more complex, because it would also affect a negative impact upon the consumers in Johor. So that matter is not being deliberated at length. But what's important is the Singapore proposal to initiate some discussions on the possible investments into some infrastructure, either in terms of the water capacity and volume, and also in terms of those affected by the pollution.
Singapore's strong and tough stance against drugs is very clear. We have maintained that position for a very long time. There is strong support for Singaporeans for that position too. It's a position we take because we really want to ensure that Singaporeans can grow up in an environment where we are free from drugs, and where parents and families and children would never be subject to the fears and the problems that are associated with drugs. That's the approach we have taken, and that's the approach that Singapore will continue to take. So if it has not resulted in bilateral issues, it was not raised, but we hope that all countries understand why, the rationale for our strong stance, and respect the way in which we go about conducting our policies on this front.
Drug menace is a problem even in Malaysia. We have traditionally taken a very strong stance, although we have amended the issue of a mandatory death sentence. But if the case is taken up through due process in Singapore, legal process, I mean, of course, the right of families to appeal, I'm no question about it, for compassion or whatever. But then for a government, Malaysian government, we do recognize the importance of taking very tough stance against drug menace, because it has created unbearable hardship and difficulties for many of our people. So that's why even if we need to raise based on compassion on some related issues, we must recognize the fact that the due process has been respected here. You have followed the due legal process and the right for defense, And once it is decided by the courts, we as a country respect that.